Okay, I'm not feeling that great. My meds aren't working. Have taken some more painkillers. They really haven't done a lot. But I want to get these videos out today, if I can. So, I do want to talk about OCD. It's Obsessive Compulsive Disorder. This is a sensitive topic. It is very controversial, so if you are triggered by such things, please be warned. Saying that, let's get into it. Okay, now, Obsessive Compulsive Disorder, or OCD, we've all heard of it. We've all kind of, a lot of people make fun of this condition. It's bandied about so often, people kind of laugh it off as it being a very kind of mild, not very serious condition, unless you actually suffer with it or know people who do. People don't really take it seriously. But it is a mental health condition, and it is quite a serious one. It involves a lot of distressing, intrusive, and obsessive, not just thoughts, but it causes repetitive compulsions, physical, acts or mental acts. It's mental, it's physical. It's repetitive. There, you feel compulsed, and it's impulsive. You're compulsed to do certain things or feel certain things. The thoughts that go through your head. It's not nice to suffer with this condition. Okay, there is a lot of research that has gone into this. I say that, but it's weird. A lot of research has gone into it, but not enough to a point. It's strange. So they found out about 2% of the whole world have OCD. Okay, that doesn't sound like a lot, like 2% of the whole world, but it is the whole world. So you're talking, a lot of people. Okay. Now, half of those, their symptoms will appear in like childhood or in their teenage years, but usually they appear in early adulthood. They will all, generally as a rule, they appear before you hit 40. It is extremely rare for people to start getting OCD after 40 years of age. It happens in early adulthood and teenage years, and sometimes you'll start seeing symptoms in children. Okay, OCD is a anxiety disorder. It is it's one of it is a condition that involves obsessive thoughts, compulsive behaviours, and it affects their lives so severely that it significantly lowers their quality of life. it's not a nice condition, and it's one of those that people really do kind of look at as being quite funny or mild, as, you know, or extremely annoying. You know, you just think, oh, for God's sake, get over it. Or they find it hilarious or funny or whatever because, you know, it's only OCD. It's only OCD, you know. And we all kind of have a mild, exceptionally mild version of it somewhere in our lives, where we've like gone through a phase of like cleaning something constantly, or washing constantly, or doing something like a lot because, you know, we're stressed, and when you're stressed you do something specific. I have an issue with cleanliness. I don't like dirty clothes. I just not like them. I hate dirty washing lying around. I can't stand seeing dirty washing lying around the place. It fucking annoys me. It just does. I can't handle it. You know, my washing machine will go on. Yeah. I've got on. You know, I don't have OCD. I've never had it. It's not who I am. I just don't. But I do have a thing about washing. I like washing. Washing to me is very therapeutic. I find that making sure clothes are clean makes me feel better about things. You know, as long as the clothes are kept clean, I feel okay. You know, I can't stand dirty washing. So I always have to make sure it's kept clean. You know, if it's dirty, it goes straight in the washing machine. I don't give a toss. It's got to go in the washing machine. It needs to be washed. You know, we all have something that we just sort of go, no, can't handle that. I'm not dealing with that. You know, I've got a friend who cleans sides in the kitchen because she doesn't like dirty sides in the kitchen. You know, it. Everybody has something that they sit there and go, do you know what? I can't handle that. I've just got to get that cleaned off before I do anything else. We all have something that we all just sort of have a little niggle about. It's not OCD, but it is just a behaviour that we sit there and go, we all have it. And it comes and it goes, and it's exceptionally so mild that it doesn't affect our daily lives in any way, shape, or form. You know, but people with OCD would take it to the absolute extreme, you know, and it would affect them. You know, so I mean, if I had OCD, with the thing with washing, I would never allow one piece of washing to be dirty. It would have to be, I'd put the washing on every 2 seconds. If I had OCD, my washing machine would never stop. You know, but it would be like that. Yeah. It goes on once a day now, sometimes twice, on the odd occasion. You know, but yeah, it's it yeah, it's debilitating. OCD is debilitating. You know, they usually have thoughts or images or even urges they cannot control, and they will have intrusive thoughts and feelings that they do not want. It's very important to understand they do not want these thoughts and feelings. They're intrusive. They don't want to. They don't want to feel like this. They don't want to hear all these weird thoughts in their head. To them, it's intrusive, and they don't want any of it. They don't want anything to do with it. They experience a lot of discomfort. And the one thing that's so important for them to understand, it is about fear, disgust, doubt, or even have a conviction that things must be done a certain way. Now, a lot of people with OCD, it's triggered by something. So they focus on obsessions and engage in their obsessions. And that's a real problem. So they'll focus solely on what they're obsessed with. To the point where it interfere with not only their personal lives, but their social and professional ones as well. And we all know that with like all other mental health issues, mental health conditions, personality, like all of them, it affects everybody differently. So some of them will check repeatedly for problems. So some will like check taps or alarms, door locks, house lights, appliances. They'll check for leaks, damage or fire. They're things like that. So they'll check to make sure there's nothing will go on fire. They'll check to make sure there's no damage to any of their house appliances. They'll check that, they'll check that everything works. There's no leaks in any of the taps, and they'll do it constantly. It'll be a massive part of their day, and everywhere they go, they will check things. When they go into somebody else's house, they will not be able to help themselves. They will check their doors, their door locks, they will check their fire alarms, they'll check their taps and their sinks, just to make sure there's no leaks and there's no damage anywhere. And they won't be able to stop. It'll be... If they don't do it, they'll feel really, really unsettled, and it will hurt them. It will mentally hurt them if they don't do it. There are some that actually will just check themselves for illnesses. So they'll check their temperatures constantly, check for temperatures or signs of swelling or redness or blotches or rashes, or they will constantly be checking for signs of like eye issues or colds or hair loss, or they will constantly be checking all of this to make sure that they are not sick. And there's also the types of OCD where they check things like correspondences, letters, emails, text messages, things like that, repeatedly. Repeatedly check them before sending them, after sending them, just to make sure that the person who's getting them isn't going to be offended or couldn't possibly be offended, or that they personally haven't made a mistake either in the email or in the correspondence, or mistakenly sent it to the wrong person. It'll be a fear response, and that is out of genuine fear that they have made a mistake or sent it to the wrong person or offended someone by mistake. Can you imagine how that would feel if you had this overwhelming need to wash your hands out of fear that you've been contaminated with a germ or something constantly? I mean, people who have OCD when it concerns their physical well-being could possibly do things like excessive teeth brushing, or hand washing. Those are the types of people that do that, or the ones that clean bathrooms, kitchens, or other rooms excessively because they're so afraid of germs. They're They avoid crowds out of fear, absolute fear of contracting germs. Uh, but for some, I mean, there are those that if they've been criticised or mistreated, if the mistreatment has come, as they've been growing up for being dirty or for being whatever, it will put into that fear of germs. Or if they're constantly feeling like they're criticised or they are being criticised, they will have this need to just constantly wash whatever it is, constantly, because they feel like they've been contaminated. And that's scary. I mean, to live like that is a scary thought. I wouldn't want to live like that. I really wouldn't want to live like that. And for people who do, it must be a very kind of isolating fear. To feel like that constantly must be quite isolating to them. I mean, the one thing I never really saw with OCD, and that really kind of threw me when I was looking into it, was the fact that people with OCD could be hoarders. Now, this kind of threw me for a loop a bit, because you never ever kind of think of people with OCD as people who hoard. But if they're afraid of throwing things out, if they're afraid to get rid of things, if their compulsion is to keep things, is to not throw things away, they can become hoarders. If they're so afraid of letting go of their possessions, if that compulsion, or if those intrusive thoughts that are in their head are compelling them to keep their things, or forcing them to keep their things out of fear or whatever, they become hoarders because they keep everything. And I never would have thought that people with OCD would become hoarders, because we always saw people with OCD as like neat freaks and cleanliness and order and control. But in the same sense, hoarding is, in that sense, it's a way of keeping control. It's something they control. By not throwing anything away, they are controlling their own spaces. They are controlling the area they live in and the way that they live. By not getting rid of any of their belongings, that is their way of controlling their lives and their space and their belongings. And so it does kind of make sense when you think about it, but it did surprise me, because I never would have put OCD and hoarding together. So yeah, there's a lot that I've learned while I was studying this. Now, as I was going through this, I kind of separated pretty much everything into categories and tried to sort of make sense of it a bit better. I don't know how well I did, but let's see if I can figure this out a bit better. I think what I'm going to do is talk about things like the signs and symptoms of, the signs of OCD in children before I kind of go into what the symptoms are and how it affects them, because I might leave that for tomorrow's video, and hopefully the pain would have eased off and I can do this a little bit easier. Okay, so if they are diagnosed, or if the signs and symptoms are beginning to show in children, first appear actually more in teenagers, generally as a rule they found, it appears first in teenagers. But there are actual complications that I found are really interesting, that if it appears in childhood, it can have other issues following it and serious consequences. So if children show signs and symptoms of OCD, there's a lot more that goes into it than if it turns up in teenagers or young adults. So children who show signs and symptoms tend to end up with things like low self-esteem, a disruption in their routines, and have difficulty in completing schoolwork. They will also have a lot more illnesses, which are, generally stress-related illnesses. Now, generally, if an illness is stress-related, you're talking fatigue, colds, headaches, migraines, things like that. And they'll have a lot of them. They will have a lot of social issues, so they'll have trouble actually making friends, keeping friends if they actually do make them, and being able to make other relationships as they get older. And also, now this is where it differs from teenager and adults as well. If it starts in childhood, it's usually men, like males, that boys, I suppose, I say men, boys will get the symptoms in childhood more often than girls would. They don't quite know why yet, but that's what they found. But actually, as teenagers and adults, it affects men and women equally. There's no difference, except as children, when it's actually boys who are most likely to be diagnosed with OCD is children, which I actually found kind of interesting. So what I'm going to do is I am going to leave it here, and tomorrow I'm going to get into more of the symptoms and signs and the effects of how it works realistically, because it needs more time. So yeah, I'm going to leave it here, and hopefully it will, alright, and hopefully I'll be feeling a little bit better tomorrow as well. Right, bye.